Although he is not well known, the fact that he is the grandson of the famous actress Doris Day has always aroused interest. At the age of 41, he is now confirming what his admirers have thought for a long time. His confession is illuminating a previously unknown aspect of Doris Day's life, including his private life and his connection with his famous grandmother. What he says is getting everyone talking, so let's examine it more closely. Located in Ohio's Cincinnati, Alma Sophia Weltz was a housewife and Friedrich Wilhelm von Kappelhoff was a music teacher and choir leader. Both of her parents were of German origin. Of her 3 siblings, Doris was the youngest. Paul was her older brother, while her younger brother Richard passed away before she was even born. Doris overcame early adversity as a child of humble means living through the Great Depression. Unfortunately for little Doris, her parents' marriage was troubled and they eventually divorced, a very unusual event for their period. Music and dance, which she loved despite everything, helped her overcome her struggles and set her on the path to success. Doris received free dance lessons after winning a dance contest when she was 12 years old by standing on her hands for over 3 hours. Her perseverance and resolve were on full display in this triumph. Sadly, a devastating vehicle accident at the age of 14 broke her leg, putting an end to her aspirations of pursuing a career in professional dancing. The option of amputation was discussed by the doctors. However, she spent more than a year bedridden following a series of surgeries. The music of Ella Fitzgerald served as an inspiration for Doris to take up singing during her time of inactivity. Alma gave Doris voice lessons with Grace Rain because she noticed her daughter had a gift for singing. Doris' future in music was already in motion when Grace immediately recognized her extraordinary talent. A local Chinese restaurant hired Doris to perform professionally when she was 15 years old, and she earned $5 per night. Barney Rapp, the bandleader, heard her sing at a local nightclub one night. Her vocals were so impressive that Rapp wanted her to be his female lead singer. The fact that Doris had to act as though she were 18 years old in order to play at locations that catered to ***** shows how determined she was to take advantage of opportunities, though. Per Rapp's recommendation, Doris used the stage name Doris Day in 1939, when she was 17 years old. She never fails to move me with her version of the song. She was apprehensive at first, but the name, which would come to mean Hollywood stardom, grew on her. Doris Day's career took a dramatic change when, at the tender age of 18, she became a member of Les Brown's band on March 15, 1940. She conquered her fear of performing on stage and won over the bandleader with her version of Embraceable You, landing the role of lead singer. Her tenure with the band was characterized by highs and lows, victories and tragedies. Doris got the terrible news that her brother Paul had died in a car crash in 1941 when the band was on tour. She gave a performance that night that was so moving that it brought tears to the audience's eyes, even though she was grieving. Her career was defined by her resilience. The song Sentimental Journey, which Doris released in 1945, was a huge hit with returning World War II troops. Her voice took on a unique gruff sound as she recorded the tune while fighting a cold. She was already well on her way to stardom after the song sold over 1 million copies in its first year. An extraordinary 7-year, $1 million agreement for a female performer at the time, Doris signed with Columbia Records in 1947, embarking on a solo career. At first, she had problems with the chosen songs since she thought they were boring and old-fashioned. Following her call for more modern music, she recorded the smash single It's Magic, which went on to sell over 2 million copies and garner her an Academy Award nomination. The crowd in the studio was astounded that she managed to record the entire song in only one take. Hollywood walked in when her singing career took off. To star in Romance on the High Seas, a 1948 film, she was suggested by composers Jules Stein and Sammy Cahn. Michael Curtis, the film's director, gushed about Doris, calling her the most perfect girl I've ever seen, when she auditioned despite her lack of acting experience. Her legendary cinematic career began with the success of The Picture. In the 50s, Doris starred in several hit musicals, such as 53's Calamity Jane and 57's The Pajama Game. Her character, Calamity Jane, was an adventurous frontierswoman, fracturing a rib while filming while doing her own stunts. The picture made more than $3.7 million at the box office. She cemented her position as a Hollywood leading lady and contributed to the $5 million earnings of The Pajama Game, which demonstrated her flexibility even further. Although Doris Day was beloved by Americans, her private life was far from idyllic. Heartbreak, betrayal, and a series of bad relationships caused her to feel helpless in her own life, despite her stunning smile and easy charisma on screen. Tragic events began when she wed trombonist Al Jordan for the first time at the tender age of 17. Doris was enthralled by what she thought was love, even though her mother strongly disapproved. But there was something more darker about the truth. Jordan exhibited aggressive, possessive, and jealous tendencies. The day following their nuptials was the initial occasion on which he struck her. The violence continued to rise after that. As his wrath built up, Jordan relentlessly accused Doris of being unfaithful. Jordan committed one of his most heinous assaults on Doris while she was pregnant with their only child, Terry. She almost miscarried from the beating she received from him after she refused to get an abortion, which he had wanted her to do. He took her to a remote area while she was 8 months along in her pregnancy and threatened to shoot them both. Doris escaped thanks to her wits and her natural survival skills. She had a healthy son in February 1942, but she was already wounded from the ordeal and felt she couldn't stay in the marriage. Although the scars that Jordan left behind remained long after she filed for a divorce, she never looked back. Doris would confess thereafter that the memory of that frightening night would never leave her while she was in the driver's seat. The marriage to musician George Widler, her second, appeared to be a new beginning for her. Their paths crossed when they were both in bands. Alongside him seemed to be the kind of company she had been seeking. Although they were married in 1946, Widler became emotionally distant and icy soon after. The icing on the cake was his admission that he couldn't cope with being married to someone whose stardom eclipsed his own. Their union lasted only 8 months before it came to an end. Doris felt utterly crushed. Next, she met Martin Melcher, the man who would have an unprecedented impact on her life. By adopting her son Terry and assuming the role of her manager, he appeared to be deeply committed. Unaware of the betrayal taking on behind the scenes, she had put her complete faith in him for nearly 20 years. Doris had no idea that Melcher and his colleague, Jerome Rosenthal, were deceitfully using her money for investments that didn't pan out and other scams. It was all going away from her without her knowing it, her entire fortune, worth more than $150 million today. But that wasn't the end of the treachery. Doris learned the truth about Melcher's deceit after he passed away unexpectedly in 1968. Not only did she find out that she was broke, but she also found out that Melcher had covertly signed her up for the Doris Day show without her knowledge or agreement. Since the pledge was her only option for paying off the enormous obligations he left behind, she had to stick to it. In 1974, after a protracted legal struggle, she was granted $22 million in damages by the court against Rosenthal. But she only collected a small portion of that sum because of the insurance negotiations. The psychological harm, however, was beyond repair. Doris, a once great Hollywood star, was devastated and deceived by the guy she trusted the most. Animal welfare became Doris Day's primary focus when her Hollywood career declined. A terrible event in her youth solidified her lifelong commitment to helping animals, though she had always loved them. Tragically, her puppy Tiny was killed when she was a little kid when she was in the automobile. Doris felt utterly crushed. As she matured, the sense of powerlessness she had experienced at that moment solidified in her resolve to devote her life to safeguarding animals. Doris still wouldn't turn a blind eye to animal cruelty, even after she was a Hollywood star. She was horrified to see the animals treated badly while filming the man who knew too much in Morocco. Until something was done, she would not continue working. Both her authority and her unfaltering moral compass were on display when her demands were fulfilled and the animals were well taken care of. The 1978 establishment of the Doris Day Pet Foundation was the culmination of her passion. What started out as a modest initiative to help local rescues soon grew into a bigger movement. Spaying and neutering programs to curb pet overpopulation were among the broader issues that the charity shifted its focus to after being renamed the Doris Day Animal Charity, DDAF. She started the World Spay Day movement in 1995 to get the word out about how important it is to spay and neuter dogs. As a result, millions of animals had their lives improved, and the movement spread to more than 70 nations. Doris established a haven for abused and neglected animals in her California house in Carmel Valley. She took it upon herself to find homes for numerous strays of dogs. She often cared for as many as 30 dogs at once, and she always gave them the attention and love they needed. Despite Doris's departure from Hollywood, her impact on animal welfare only intensified. She utilized her fame to advocate for changes in legislation, denounce animal abuse, and draw attention to the issues she was most passionate about. Doris persevered in her commitment to animal welfare even into her twilight years. She shocked everyone in 2011 when she released her new album, My Heart, at the age of 89. A number of the songs on the CD were written by her son Terry, who passed away, among others. With the economic success of her very personal album, Doris became the oldest artist in UK album chart history to reach number 10 with new material. Staying out of the spotlight and not doing interviews. On her 97th birthday in 2019, she made her last public appearance and thanked her followers for their unwavering support throughout her journey. She died quietly at home a short time after that. Hollywood wasn't the only place her impact was felt. Her talents extended beyond the realms of acting and music. She stood up for the powerless. Her beautiful voice and contagious grin are what the world remembers about her, but her greatest contribution was not to Hollywood, but to the lives of the innumerable animals she rescued. However, Doris's latter years were not without a cloud, even as she poured her heart out to the cause that meant the most to her. Unbeknownst to her, a contentious family feud was taking place, and its outcome would be to cut her ties with her sole grandson, Ryan Melcher. That harsh reality was revealed with Doris Day's passing. Doris Day deserved a life of comfort and belonging in her twilight years, spent with loved ones and the animals she cherished. Strange things were happening behind the scenes of Carmel Valley's idyllic lifestyle. Ryan Melcher, her sole grandchild, was isolated from her for more than a decade despite his childhood obsession with his grandma. In 2019, the devastating reality came to light. Like everyone else, Ryan learned of Doris's death over Facebook after she passed away. What Ryan had long assumed was verified by this devastating news. Somebody had been preventing him from seeing his grandma. In 2004, following Doris's only child Terry Melcher's passing, problems started to arise. For as long as his mother could remember, Terry, a well-respected music producer, had been there. Despite the challenges they faced together, they remained profoundly linked. His death created an empty space, and without Terry to help them communicate, Ryan's bond with Doris started to weaken. Doris extended a dinner invitation to Ryan not long after Terry passed away, as if reaching out a hand in a gesture of reconciliation. A long time had passed, and Ryan finally had his chance. Doris and his relationship had been deteriorating since his parents' 1997 divorce. The opportunity to restore what had been destroyed was presented by this dinner invitation. However, Bob Bashara, a male, intervened before Ryan could even visit his grandmother. Doris co-owned the boutique hotel Cypress Inn in Carmel with her business manager Bashara, who called Ryan to a private meeting. A chilly and planned query was asked of Ryan there. "Then why would you like to visit Doris?" "Since she is my grandma," Ryan was shocked and perplexed, as he recalled afterwards. However, the reaction he got was catastrophic. He was told by Bashara that he was not allowed to see her. He indicated that Ryan's parents and previous family disputes were to blame. Both the meeting and Ryan's ability to contact his grandma came to a close. There was no response to repeated efforts to get in touch throughout the years. The installation of security gates surrounding Doris's home and the subsequent restriction of access to her were purportedly signs that Bashara had increased his control over her life. The entertainer, who had spent decades embracing both humans and animals, was suddenly totally alone. Upon Doris's passing in 2019 at the age of 97, Ryan had already accepted the reality that he would never have the opportunity to bid farewell. The years they never got back were a burden on him. Ryan finally spoke up in a Facebook post in the days after her death, exposing the tragic reality of their separation. People had always assumed Doris was a kind, family-oriented woman, so his remarks really got under their skin. "I, too, learned of my grandmother's death through social media, as I'm sure most of you did, in case anyone was wondering. Bob Bashara, my grandmother's manager and executor, barred me from seeing her for 14 years and controlled all aspects of her life. I have to live with the tragic reality, but there's a lot more to the narrative." Doris Day's long-standing admirers were taken aback by the discoveries. Why would anyone dare to keep a grandma who was famously kind and generous away from her own grandson? Why had nobody brought this up earlier? Regarding his own actions, Bashara disclaimed any impropriety. He said that many people had tried to get Ryan and Doris back together, but Ryan had always turned them down. He referenced an earlier post on Ryan's website in which the actor had requested that fans not get in touch with him over his renown in Hollywood or his famous grandma, though many were doubtful. Some speculated that Doris, who was notoriously reclusive, may have just wanted to get away from it all. But there were some who thought her trusted circle had manipulated her in some way, keeping her relationships under wraps and giving access to just a few. One fact is constant, regardless of the location of the truth. She out her final years alone from her only grandchild, despite being one of the most cherished figures in U.S. history. After she departed, Ryan was bereft of any answers and overwhelmed with grief. Doris Day's grandson, now 41 years old, confirms what we all suspected, that his grandma's golden years were anything but tranquil. Doris was the personification of joy for a long time. An iconic performer whose infectious optimism and moving performances brought happiness to audiences worldwide. There is still a lot we don't know about her because of the terrible reality of her latter years: seclusion, restricted access, and unresolved concerns. Ryan Melcher lamented the time he never got to spend with his grandma after she passed away. He frequently pondered whether she had ever questioned his decision to cease visiting. Had someone knowingly kept her in the dark, or had she just decided to cut connections with her family? Not everyone agrees with Ryan's account. Doris's longtime publicist Charlie Cullen Walters is one such voice. Efforts were made to reconcile Ryan and Doris, according to Walters, especially around Doris's 90th birthday in 2014, but Ryan opted to stay apart. On the other hand, several relatives of Doris's thought that her manager had considerably more influence over her life than was widely acknowledged. The outcome has not changed, regardless of the person or people responsible. Because of the separation, Doris Day and her grandson will never have the chance to reconcile. In addition to the difficulties within her family, Doris devoted her last years to fighting for the rights of animals. She devoted her time to rescuing dogs, caring for the animals on her ranch of 11 acres, and fighting for legislation to make spaying and neutering mandatory. She had long since abandoned the glitter of Hollywood for the purpose of championing an issue she was deeply committed to. She lived a modest life and was famously frugal. Doris lived frugally, using paper plates for her meals and storing a washing machine in her bedroom, despite being a Hollywood star. Even after receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Kennedy Center honors, she declined them all in an effort to avoid the spotlight. Fans and historians alike are captivated by the story of Doris's life and the mysteries surrounding her final years, even though she decided to move away from the spotlight. In addition to bringing an era to a close, her 2019 death rekindled a discussion about the shadow side of fame. Doris Day's legacy, however, is unbreakable. She has many other talents beyond those of an actor and a singer. She was an unstoppable force, a woman who triumphed over insurmountable difficulties and repeated tragedies. A tale of love, intrigue, and perseverance, hers is an epic tale. This serves as a sobering reminder that even celestial bodies can have dark sides. What are your thoughts on the idea that hidden truths can emerge from familial legacies? How much do you think you would have known about Doris Day's grandson prior to his 41st birthday reveal? Join us again soon for the most recent news and stay tuned for more shocking stories.